Alliance Defending Freedom, Douglas Wardlaw, who is sending a letter to the state about this toolkit. Douglas, welcome to the program. We really appreciate the fine work you guys are doing.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so I'm reading through this toolkit. This is some crazy stuff here, Douglas.
Yes, indeed it is. It is absolutely insane, and it's really beyond the pale. The toolkit, it recommends that all Minnesota schools, they're saying it's not required. It's not formal guidance that requires schools to do this, but they're strong-arming schools. The bureaucrats at the Minnesota Department of Education are trying to strong-arm schools to do things like mix the sexes in communal restrooms and locker rooms, right? And they're going to require, they want to require students to refer to other students using the preferred pronouns when you're talking about a transgender student. So that means that the government's basically saying, okay, if you don't refer to another child who claims that they're a male, say when they're actually a female, if you don't refer to them using he, then you could run afoul of the toolkit's guidance, and you could actually be liable as a school for creating a hostile environment under Title IX. And that's preposterous because, of course, the First Amendment, we have a thing called free speech. The government doesn't get to tell students what they can and can't say unless it's causing disruption to the education of students. So this is really Orwellian because it's
Douglas,
changing the way language itself works.
Well, now, according to the toolkit, they say language around gender is evolving, Douglas.
Yes. It's almost like they're trying to privatize language and force us all to adopt a certain approach to our language. But gendered pronouns have been in English language since the English language began. And if a student refers to a person who is a biological male using she or he, right, and they're punished for it, that means the school is basically compelling students to make statements about sex and gender identity and reality that don't conform to reality and that the student may not agree with.
Douglas,
might go against their religious beliefs as well.
Douglas, one of the components of this I was concerned about involved teachers. According to the toolkit, teachers who call a child by the wrong pronoun could violate a Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act.
That's what they're saying, and that really doesn't make any sense. I mean, students. Now, there's one thing, if a teacher or a student is maliciously using a pronoun and teasing another child or bullying or harassing and something like that where it's clear that there's a malicious intent, that's one thing. But to use a pronoun to just state a fact about reality and refer to a person as you normally do in the English language, there's nothing problematic about that. And it's, in fact, protected speech under the First Amendment. So the toolkit is way off base.
So tell us what Alliance Defending Freedom has done there. I know you guys have sent a letter to every school district in the state.
That's right. So we sent a letter to, along with the North Star Law and Policy Centers, a group of attorneys here in Minnesota, we sent a letter to every school district in the state, every school board member, and every superintendent. And the letter tells schools and warns them not to adopt the toolkit's recommendations because the recommendations of the toolkit, including the pronoun recommendation as well as the recommendation with regard to bathrooms and locker rooms and overnight accommodations, these things jeopardize students' fundamental rights to privacy and their fundamental constitutional right to free speech. And if schools go forward with these recommendations and implement them, they will be not only turning away from their duty to protect the privacy rights and constitutional rights and safety of all of their students, but they will also be actively undermining students' constitutional rights and subjecting themselves to possible liability. And that's what we're telling schools, to hopefully that schools will recognize that this is a constitutionally problematic thing that they're being asked to do and reject entirely the Department of Education's toolkit recommendations.
And we've got about 30 seconds left, Doug. If you could explain to moms and dads why they need to be paying attention to what's happening in Minnesota.
They need to pay attention to what's happening in Minnesota because this is coming to other states across the nation. This is a particular ideology about transgenderism that's being pushed actively in a very liberal gubernatorial administration here. And the hope, I think, of the administration in pushing this out is that no one will object, and then it'll just sort of pass into normal practice and then spread to other states. So that's why we need to be concerned about this, because it directly violates and threatens people's constitutional rights.
All right, Doug Wardlow from Alliance Defending Freedom. You guys are doing some great work out there, Doug. Thanks for calling in on the Newsmaker line.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, your telephone calls, 888-788-.